What's up, college football fans and Mean Green fans? Noah Valente here once again with the Mean Green Show today, joined by Reed Smith from Mean Green 24/7, and we're going to jump into the last week of, or this past week of fall camp, and maybe give some guesses for how the scrimmage went, as it was not open to the media or to the public. But before we get into all that, guys, you already know the drill. If you're a fan of college football or G5 football, consider hitting that like and subscribe button, because that is truly all that we talk about. Also, if you haven't already, check out Reed's site at Mean Green 24/7. I'm going to leave the link in the description. You can sign up before the season starts. Reed puts out weekly practice notes, keeps everybody really up to date. It's something that I'm always catching up on whenever I can't make it to stuff myself. And North Texas, we have a really strong 24/7 presence, and a lot of G5 schools don't have that. So we definitely want to support the guys and what they're doing, and Reed's doing a great job. Anyway, Reed, thank you so much for jumping on with me. Just kind of jumping right into it, man. We'll talk about QBs at the end here. But in the second week of fall practice, starting off with receivers, any names sticking out that you know maybe that some dark horses that might be kind of cracking the starting lineup?
I think the names that stand out definitely are Trey Cleveland from Texas Tech and Blair Conwright from TCU. We talked a little about him before the show, but Conwright has obviously very good hands, very quick receiver, and then Cleveland's a little different, better hands, got a big frame. He was listed at 6'4" at Texas Tech. Since then, he's been listed at 6'1". I'm 6'2". Standing next to him, he seems a little bit taller than me. So maybe I'm shorter than I think I am, or no. But yeah, two different kind of receivers. But those are the two names that have kind of stuck out so far. And then the usual suspects in the receiver room. The Macklins from last year. Burns has looked solid. Smart will be getting first team reps.
How's Kalon Horton looking? Is he?
He's looking good. I think he's still getting used to kind of filling that receiver role more than anything. He's the utility guy. I think the Luttrell offense used him in pretty much any situation you can use a guy like that, in terms of they ran him at back, ran him at receiver, obviously returner, but he's been filling that slot role on some reps during fall. And, I think that's kind of where he belongs in that receiver core.
Right on. So moving over to the offensive line, just judging off of Coach Morris's interview and his body language and everything like that, seems like starting lineup is pretty solid, but maybe there's concern with depth. Any word on how the transfers are doing, Larry Moore, Vaipulu, as well as Ethan Miner?
They've all been on the second team. So that's 3 of 5 of the second team offensive line right there. Miner has been the center. Vaipulu and Moore have both been on that line. So they haven't really broken the first team, because that first team offensive line of Casey Mareka, Gabe Blair, Dazion Carroll, Jet Duncan, and Fabechi Nwaiwu, that's kind of seems set in stone at this point. It's kind of the guy that they want their quarterbacks behind to get used to.
Really good job. Nwaiwu, I would have butchered that. So good job to you. Your thoughts, though, are you're at practice pretty much every time that's available. Do you see reason to be concerned if we were to lose a starting offensive line, or do you think they can plug one of those guys and keep the momentum going?
I think they could plug one of the guys in. What they've talked about a lot during this camp is the versatility the line has. So if a guard goes down, a tackle could move to guard. Nwaiwu is playing tackle when he's been a guard pretty much his entire career. So, that versatility in the line means that if they needed to bring a guy or move a guy to the side or move a guy to a different place, and then get a guy who's maybe better at tackle and move Fabechi back to guard if there was an injury, the depth on paper doesn't look incredibly deep, but I think that the versatile nature of the line will, make up for that a little bit.
Anything worth mentioning in the running back room, or is it kind of business as usual?
It's pretty much business as usual. I've been really hammering the point that a lot of them are learning, better hand skills, adjusting to a new pass-heavy offense. I think Oscar Attaway has probably impressed me the most with his pass catching ability. Because not a lot of people think about it, but if you go back to his days back in high school in Arkansas, I mean, he was a force to be reckoned with in the passing game. He had over 600 receiving yards in his senior year of high school. So it's definitely something he has part of his game. It seems like he's kind of able to bring that back in the Morris Davis offense.
How's he looking as far as recovery wise from his latest injury? Is he going full contact, full speed?
He looks completely healthy. I mean, I think they're being a little bit healthy or a little bit more careful to keep that running back healthy because, each of those four main guys have had multi-game injuries in their career. Obviously, Attaway has had, 3 season injuries at this point. So Morris said something at the first day of fall camp to where he was like, we're being a little more attentive to those guys. The goal is to get them to week 1. It's not exactly to get them hit hard, get them used to that, and get them used to that. It's more getting those 4 guys to play at week 1, to be healthy is the most imperative thing for that group.
And I understand, the media availability, it's can't be there the entire practice. You can't see everything, but just based off what you're seeing, going to the defensive side of the ball, are they in the 3-3 predominantly? And how's the defensive line looking as far as, starters and depth there?
Defensive line, it's been about what we expected with who was starting. Rod Brown, rather, is down the middle. Mason Richards has been playing that right end spot, and then left end has kind of been a mix of a bunch of different guys. Fatafai Valea seems to be the leading candidate for that third spot, but yeah, it's mostly been a 3-3-5 at the defense.
How do you feel about Vilea? I mean, we know Mason and we know Brown. They're proven, obviously, and really productive. How is Vilea fitting in? Is it something you feel comfortable with, or are you? Is it kind of you can tell is it pretty obvious this is his first year? Going to be in that starting role.
He looks comfortable in that role. He's a big guy, matches the defensive scheme, so athletic. So. I think that across the board, really, the personnel a little bit smaller than you would expect from a 3-3-5, especially considering what Capone had at Iowa State. But a lot of those guys are, more athletic than, for big guys, even for a smaller size. So I think the consensus is that hopefully that athleticism can make up for their lack of size in the system.
Probably the biggest question mark on the defense is the linebacking core with all the losses in KD and Nixon. How's that looking? Who are the guys that are maybe surprising, and just what are your thoughts there?
Across the board, people on defensive coaches and players that we've talked to have been really impressed with Carson Kropp. He's an interesting character. Very long career, previously at Oklahoma State. I mean. Interesting guy, and I asked him directly, you lose your 2 leading tacklers, KD to eligibility, Larry Nixon to Auburn. He goes, we're not worried about it. We don't care. Worried about this season. So a very, very just blunt thing. But Carson Kropp is definitely going to be somebody to watch for this season. And then for getting first team reps last practice that we saw, because we don't see a lot of 11v11. They show us maybe 2 reps of quick 11 for full team practices. And then as soon as something else starts, we're kicked out. We're shown the door. So the first team linebackers that I had seen were Ethan Wisloski. He's been kind of a guy that's kind of emerged here in the fall. Jalen Smith, who was, somebody that a lot of people said, okay, he could step up now with the linebacker situation. And then Jordan Brown, who got some starts last year when Kevin Wood was injured. And he's been consistently on the first team. Kevin Wood, when he's healthy, probably is on that in that. Well, I say probably, but more than likely is one of those linebackers there. But the problem is he just hasn't really been healthy this fall. If they could get him healthy before week 1, that will be a big deal.
Do you know who they have at middle currently?
From what I saw, it was it was Jalen Smith.
Okay.
So
Right on. Okay, so moving back to the defensive backs, how's that looking? I mean, it seems like there's a few strong suits in that mix, but what are you seeing?
I think that the leading five are pretty much who everyone would have expected. Ridge Tejada and John Davis have filled the first team cornerback roles as you expected, or as we expected. Luckett has looked solid, but I just can't really see him surpassing Davis or Tejada. And then those three high safeties, you got Logan Wilson. I wrote the other day that I feel like that's probably a lock for him and that outside safety role. Middle safety, or what they're calling it, is the star. Nick Nakwasa has continued filling that role predominantly since spring, and then Phil Hill on the other side. But those two North Shore guys, they have been,
that was my next question.
Yeah, they've been looking good. Javen Anderson, he's been more on the second team lately. But it's really been Evan Jackson who's been getting first team and second team reps. He's looking very impressive, especially for freshmen. They look like they haven't really missed a beat since high school.
Yeah, Javen Anderson. I know the football account put a few videos. I think he was in, and he looks like a unit. I mean, he doesn't look like a freshman. So that's interesting. Okay, so last but obviously not least, let's jump into this quarterback race a little bit. So spring ended, and not saying I've changed, but I definitely would have put all my money on Rodgers. I think he had a great spring and a live spring. I feel like he performed the best in that spring. But it seems that Coach Morris has kind of maybe pulled the reins back a little bit as far as quick as maybe he thought he would name a starter. And just going back off of his interview, the only name he dropped was Stone. So is Stone kind of pushing that quarterback competition longer than they thought? What are you seeing with the quarterback race?
It's really even between those three guys. I mean, between Earl, Reuter, and Rodgers, they're both getting the same amount of first team reps. They have wanted to get them used to that first team offensive line, all three of them. And by this point, probably a lot of fans and, journalists as well have been kind of thinking that now's kind of the time to pick a quarterback. It's 3 weeks before the season yesterday. Got to get one guy getting those first team reps. But, I mean, there hasn't been a separator between them, really. I mean, in terms of reps, at least. I'm still adamant on Rodgers. I think Rodgers is the cream of the crop in that quarterback room. If you look at the situation in which Rodgers has been put in, especially at ULM last season, they're playing a lower P5, but granted a P5 in California week 1. This is a kid that played Texas, Alabama, big teams last season, and Rodgers. And so he's been in the moment. He had a full season as a starter and at a D1 level. So it just seems like Rodgers still is the obvious choice in my head. And, at practice, he seems to have the highest upside, greatest elusiveness in the pocket, can read the pocket really well, been really accurate. He had a throw that I was particularly impressed by last week where he was rolling to his right, and then just laid an absolute dart into Jamori Macklin's chest in the middle of the field. So, it's from everything we've been told from Morris, it's still wide open. It wasn't open to media yesterday for the scrimmage, so we have no idea how that went. But so he said that I don't know if you read this, but he said the timetable was anywhere from it could be Sunday, or it could be 2 weeks from Sunday, or it could be just spitballing a little bit about when it could be, and saying, "Oh, I'll be a lot less stressed when it is picked," which I thought was kind of a funny quote. But there's not a lot of separation between the three right now. I couldn't tell you who has the upper hand. In my mind, it's Rodgers, like I said, but Reuter and Earl are still very much in the running as of right now.
All right, last question before I get you off here. So, is it not a lot of separation due to all three competing at such a high level, or is it not a lot of separation for the latter, as in, just what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that any three of them have performed extremely badly or, extremely well per se. They've all kind of been like somewhere in the middle, and that could just be because we're seeing them at practice. That scrimmage, no doubt, was a big deal to put them in that kind of sort of situation. Obviously, on the field at DATCU, that could change a lot of things. It's hard to say that why there's a separation between the three. It really is. But if you're asking like who matches the scheme the best, I mean, I'd go Rodgers, certainly. And Rodgers and Earl probably match the scheme the best. Reuter is sticking in based on, he has strong arm, has looked decent at fall. I mean, if you asked me, he's probably the third guy on that depth chart that I've been impressed by in terms of quarterback. But, from the three, I would say, like you mentioned, how Morris name dropped Earl. I don't think Earl will beat Rodgers, but he has been the second most impressive to me. I've been impressed by his ability to throw outside of the numbers. I mean, I didn't know Earl had that kind of arm strength, so he's been getting them zip on some of those balls there. I mean, I almost got hit by one the other day. So.
Yeah, no thanks. All right, Reed. Well, hey, I appreciate it. I know the season's coming up. I know you're busy. Keep up the great work, and I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Appreciate it, man. Hopefully we'll get some more answers tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, man. Take care.